Louis Quilico was one of the leading operatic baritones of the 20th century. His sudden passing on July 15, 2000 was a great loss to the musical world. Quilico performed at many of the world's great opera houses: Covent Garden, the Paris Opera, the Bolshoi, and the Vienna Staatsoper, to name only a few. He was a stalwart of the Metropolitan Opera, appearing nearly 300 times over 25 consecutive years. At the Met, he sang under the baton of James Levine, Zubin Mehta, Richard Bonynge and Claudio Abbado, and alongside tenors including Luciano Pavarotti, Placido Domingo, John Vickers and José Carreras, and sopranos Joan Sutherland, Renata Tebaldi, Renata Scotto, and Beverly Sills. Louis Quilico was an ideal interpreter of the great Italian and French composers, but it was his defining portrayal of Rigoletto, the hunchbacked jester in Verdi's tragic masterpiece, that won him international acclaim, as well as the nickname Mr. Rigoletto. He sang the role more than 500 times, the last being at the National Arts Centre in Ottawa in September of 1994. After his retirement from the operatic stage in 1998, he continued to perform, touring extensively with his wife, the celebrated pianist Christina Petrowska Quilico. Together they made 4 recordings and a teaching video, and collaborated on the book Mr. Rigoletto in Conversation with Louis Quilico. In this book, Quilico shared his views on singing, on opera, and on his signature role, Rigoletto. He also talked about his own personally devised vocal techniques, sharing them with a new generation of singers. What is missing in the printed version of these conversations is Quilico's own voice and his unique personality. In these recordings, we hear him speak in his own words, with his own voice, unfiltered and unedited. Speaking personally, baritone Louis Quilico, Mr. Rigoletto, in conversation with Christina Petrowska Quilico. In this conversation, Louis shares his views on modern opera productions.
How important are the costumes and the sets for you in Rigoletto? Do you feel comfortable only in the one costume? Are you willing to change?
Well, I have to say one thing. You can change. I don't criticize. But you know, when it comes to the question of the costume and all that, you know, there's a lot of people that want to make it modern and everything. I'm a little bit against that, because I think the general public, there's one thing that they want. When you go to a theater, you go and see Shakespeare. Would you see Shakespeare in just plain clothes? Like when I saw Don Giovanni, Don Anna with just a brassiere, and I don't remember, there was somebody else that was completely nude, practically nude and all that. You know, it's not that what the public wants to see. The public wants to be engaged of something of the past. They want to forget today. But if you got to bring them in today, you're in big trouble. Certain, maybe a few opera that you might be able to do that, but give a certain flavor to the people, you know?
Well, let's leave Rigoletto for the moment. You mentioned modern times. What about modern opera? Tell me the operas that you've done. I know you did Wozzeck.
In the modern one?
And
I did Wozzeck, La Mère Coupable. La Mère Coupable, it was Darius Milhaud. And I'm trying to think about if there was anything else in the modern one.
Well, Debussy's Pelléas et
Well,
Melisande.
that I don't know if you can call that modern.
It is 20th century.
Yeah, but it's still, I don't know. Maybe you can call it that way, but I don't feel exactly. I think there's too much romanticism, really romanticism, that was written in those years, you know. When you figure that you see La Mère Coupable, you know, that's quite different than Wozzeck, you know.
Wozzeck seems to be quite a classic.
Well, it's a classic, but for the one who likes it, you know,
Yeah.
you really have to like Wozzeck.
Well, compared to Lulu, it's more palatable for the audience, I believe.
Well, I think so too, yes.
And Wozzeck, there is another character that the human emotion can be completely overwhelming. Do you want to talk about
Would you
your
repeat
character?
this again?
No, the character like Rigoletto, the character in Wozzeck that you play, is so emotionally draining.
Well, I have to say one thing. When I did Wozzeck, I did it only once in my life. And when I did it for television. And when I finished, I had swear, and it happened, I never did it again after that. Because I was completely drained. I had became Wozzeck.
That's where you have to murder your wife.
That's right. But it's not but the murder of his wife, you know, something very... he doesn't know he kills her. It's a man that is born in a time that he doesn't belong there. Everybody is picking on the poor man. You know, this is the thing that I felt about Wozzeck. He was not a rebel, could not rebel, because did not understand. It's not because he was retarded, but why do you, like for instance, if somebody would have spit at him, why do you spit at me? He could not reason that, because for him, he doesn't do nothing wrong. But everybody knows the way he is, and they pick on him. And that is the thing that I felt about Wozzeck. That is a very poor soul. And this is why, in a certain way, when he kills Marie, he does not even know that he kills her.
How did you find the role vocally?
Wozzeck, I have to say one thing, I didn't find it very difficult. I don't think it's a very difficult role. It's difficult for one reason. If you don't know it, then you're in big trouble. But if you know how to cope with it, it's not a difficult role. It's because, you see, the point is, the music, the way it's written, there's 7 notes. But the voice, doing a voice will practically never, or I would say, it does happen, but you never have these... to go to jump to a 5th, or to jump to a 7, or to jump on a 6th, or to jump on a 4th, you know. These kind of, the voice is not accustomed to it. If you are used to do that kind of work, that's different. But when you're not used to it, that's the thing that makes it very difficult. It's very demanding for that reason. But when you get accustomed to it, and you know it very well, all of a sudden, these extension in the music doesn't make no difference, because your voice knows how to do it. You know, the point is very interesting about the voice is, I always say, you know a role only when you know it practically by memory. Because at that point, the mind has time to give the extension in the voice. That is the thing that's very dangerous. When you don't know that kind of extension in the voice, and you have to go too fast. And what is happening, it's like, I don't know, like the violin. The violin, you will not have the right note. You have to go exactly paf. That's the greatness of the great violinist player. They can touch, and that's it. Or even the piano. If all of a sudden your extension is not ready for it, you have to go for it, and all of a sudden, and very often it can be dangerous for the hand.
Yes, because with performing, and I'm sure this is the same for voice, there's the tactile memory.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yes, tactile, oral, and visual. So for the voice, it would be the same, the feeling.
Well, I would say it's even more treacherous for the voice. Because let's face it, we have too little vocal cord. And the point is that we don't exactly understand. If you start to think about it, let's say the length of your vocal cord is 1 inch. And you go from one octave to 2 octaves and a half. That's what generally people have. That's what they have, 2 octaves and a half. All of a sudden, your extension in your vocal cord, it may be a 16th of an inch. And all of a sudden, because you don't know exactly what you're doing, the first thing you know, it's not anymore than 16. It might extend half inch. Well, let's say half inch, yes. And the first thing you know, you have overextended. Why do you think people have nodes? For that reason. Because they don't know what to do with the voice. A person that knows what to do with the voice generally will not have trouble with nodes. Doesn't exist. It's a person that doesn't know what to do with their voice. Or they're too tired, they're not well at hand, they're not well convinced of what they're doing or something like that. But a person that generally will not have nodes for that reason.
Can you tell me a bit more about your experience with Darius Milhaud, since that was a premiere that you did?
Well, I have to say one thing. I had a very funny experience with Darius, because Darius had the habit, and I'm not the only one. There was a lot of people that can confirm that he used to write the music, and very often would come at the last moment, and it was not yet finished. And you had to wait, and then the first thing you know, you have to do to read this music. I mean, that was very treacherous. And for me, I am not a man that has a very easy way. It's easy for me to take a thing and to do it at the last minute. No, because like I said, I have to know practically the work by memory. Then I know that at that moment, my mind, you see, the mind is a wonderful thing, but don't try to overtax it. Get him used to it. Get him used to it. Like, for instance, you're reading a book. Me, if I read a book very often, I might have to read a paragraph twice because to understand it. You read it once, your mind is so well open, receptive to what you are doing there, that it's automatic. You understand it right off the bat. And this is, for me, the music's exactly the same thing. It takes me time. And it's not because I'm not more and less intelligent than somebody else. It's not that. But the thing is, I contributed, and I created that when I want to do something, I have to know it practically by memory. This way, the what do you call it? The extension of the chord has time to be done, and that is the point. Very often, people that read music like this, the first thing you know, they never amount to nothing for that reason.
Well, getting back to Darius Milhaud, so he sent you the score for...
Well, you sent me... the point is, the first thing I did for him, he called me up, and I said, oui, Jamet. He said, I'm creating an encyclic, and I would like you to sing it. I said, fine. I said, good. And me, to learn things at the last minute, I was always against my grain. And all of a sudden, I said, fine. I says, what is it that you would like me? Well, he says, I would like you to do for me, create Pacem in Terris. I said, fine. I says, when is it? Oh, he says, well, you still have time to learn it and all that. I says, when? And we were the 4th of December. He says, the 8th of December. I said, you're out of your picket mind. He said, no, Mr. Quilico, I just heard about you. He says, I would like you very much to do it because I think you have the right voice for it. And me, like crazy nuts, I accepted. But the thing is, I went through hell for 4 days and practically 4 nights to study that music. Because, for instance, I did not have a printed score. I got the manuscript. And, sometimes these composers, the way they scribble their... the new composers are much more better. The old composer, they used to scribble the music, Make it very difficult for me to read it. In fact, I was working and I had 2 pianists and one that was accustomed to the music of Milhaud. And all of a sudden she would stop and she would say, my God, is this an F sharp or is it an F natural? Let me play it. And she would say, it sounds very good with the F natural. Let me put the sharp. Oh, I think the sharp sounds even better, And that was the thing we had. And me, you have to read this kind of music. Anyway, we went through, and I have to say one thing. We had wonderful. And then I had to create it. I recorded it and everything. It was a great experience. But the second thing I did for him, that I should have said, no way. He called me in October. He said, Mr. Quilico, I thought of you because I'm doing an opera called La Mère Coupable, is the third Beaumarchais. The first Barber Seville, then Marriage of Figaro, then La Mère Coupable. He said, I would like you to create this for me, Geneva. I said, fine. I said, when is it? He said, I think it was the 14th of June, 14th of May. Was it May? Yeah, 14th of May. The following year. Well, I says, good. I says, only one thing, Maestro. I says, I need the music right away. Oh, you'll get it right away. You get it right away. I said, okay. Actually, me forget about Darius Milhaud and forget about it. All of a sudden, the month of October passed, the month of November passed, comes the middle of December, and the 1st of January, I was going to America to do some concert. And I was going to be stuck in America till April 26. All of a sudden, I just dawned on me. I says, where's the score? I called him. I said, Maestro, what happened to the score? He says, you didn't get it? I said, no, I got nothing. I don't have the foggiest idea. And I would like to know, am I going to get it? Or is it still on? No, it's still on. I'm doing it and you're doing it. I says, well... I said, I'm leaving for America the 2nd of January. I says, I need the music before. I got to start to at least have a little idea of what is the opera about. He says, I'll send you a score by courier or something. Me, forgot the courier. The score never got in. Comes the 2nd of January. I thought about it. I said, at the last minute, I says, well, listen. I'm going to call him. I called him. I said, Maestro, I said, I did not receive your score. It's off. No. I says, he says, I don't understand. What do you call it? The recording was supposed to have sent it to you and all that. I said, Maestro, I says, I'm going to America. Well, he says, what can we do? I says, well, here's a few addresses where I'm going to be. Send me the score there. And I says, but send it to me at the beginning. Not later than the 15th of January, something. No, you get it. Okay, good. I leave for America. I do my concert. I'm going my concert. Comes the 25th of April. Take the plane back to Paris and thinking about it, and all that. I arrive home. The 26th. I arrive home that afternoon. All of a sudden, I'm home. All of a sudden, call. I go to the phone. Hello, Mr. Quilico? Yes. Madame Milhaud? Yes. I says, how are you? I says, how's everything? He says, fine. The maestro would like to see you tomorrow for the opera. I says, Madame, I don't have a score. I says, what's the first word I sing? She says, what do you mean? I says, I never got a score. I said, I don't want to do it. I says, we're practically, at the time we have to go to Geneva. I'm supposed to be in Geneva, according to you, tomorrow to rehearse. I said, I don't know nothing about this opera. I says, do you think I'm Jesus Christ? She says, the maestro will flip. I says, I don't care, man. He can flip. He can do what he wants. But I says, I'm not interested to do it. I says, tell him to forget about me. Tell him to get somebody else. But me, I don't have time to learn his kind of music because it's too hard for me. It's not my kind of music. And I says, well, goodbye. I'm so sorry for this and all that. 10 minutes later, I got a call. I go on the phone. Hello, Mr. Quilico. I said, yes, maestro. What is it you want? He says, you cannot do this. I said, hold it. I said, what do you think you're doing? I'm doing it to you. I says, you did it to me. I said, I don't have the score. What do you want me to tell you? Mr. Quilico, I'm deeply sorry with this, but you really have to do it for me. He says, maestro, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it for nobody because I'm going to break my neck. I says, I'm not that fast to do that kind of music. I says, I'm not accustomed to do it. He says, anyway, please do me a favor, come to my house tomorrow. I said, what do you want me to tell you? No, come. I said, all right. We'll start to work on it. Anyway, I go to his house the next day. And we start to work. First act, it was, my God, if you're accustomed to do new music, it's all right. But when you're not used to it, the extension and all that, the fourth, the fifth, the third, and all that stuff, All right, some people it's easy, but for me it's not easy. It was not easy. When you sing Verdi, you have a line that keeps on going and feeds you. You go till the end. Anyway, we start to work. We finally went through the first act. And I said to him, well, you see where we are. He says, makes no difference. He says, you come with me tomorrow on the train and you'll see. I said, all right, I'll leave. We're on the train, we talk, and finally we arrive in Geneva. And they give me the schedule, and I said, listen, I don't know it. I said, you got somebody else? Or they said, yes, we have somebody who would... But I said, when did he get the score? Oh, he's got the score in December. I said, thank you very much. Me, who's the principal singer, don't even have a score. Give me a score now. Anyway, for till the day I did the performance, 17 days, every morning, 8 o'clock, till noon. 1 till 6, 7 to midnight, every single day in the studio, and work on it, and work on it, and work on it. Arrived the 5th day. I walk on the stage, I'm shaky like a leaf. I'm scared because we're getting close to the performance. And I said to myself, well, listen, it's no use. I cannot do it. And all of a sudden, around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, he was there. Everybody was there. All of a sudden, I start to make a mistake here, a mistake there. And the funny thing about it, all of a sudden, I had the score in front of me, and sometimes I could not read it. I was so panicky that my mind said, no, stop, Louis, stop. It's funny that way. All of a sudden, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the one who knew it very well was José Van Damme, But I got so bloody mad. All of a sudden, I take the score, and he was right there in front with everybody. I take the score. I throw it at his feet. I said, Maestro, I says, you know what you can do with your opera? I says, I'm going home, and that is the end of me here. I says, I don't know it. He feels that I don't know it, showing the director, showing the conductor, I show who was responsible. And I said, I don't know this opera, simple as that, goodbye, and I'm going home. And I start to walk on the stage. I reached the door of the stage door. Mr. Quilico, please come here. Oh, in this telephone conversation, I'm sorry before, when I talked to him, all of a sudden, there's a stop. And he's the one who was talking. He stops talking. And all of a sudden, I listen. I says, "Maestro," and I hear at the other end of the line, this old man crying. That's why I said, "Okay, I'll come." Anyway, he said to me when I reached the door, "Mr. Quilico, please come back here." I said, "Maestro." And I turn around and I hold the door. Still the door is half open. He says, "Please come here. I want to talk to you." I says, "Well, it won't kill me to talk to him. It's all right. Let me apologize a little bit more." Finally, I go to him. I said, "Maestro, you saw yourself." I says, "I don't know the opera." I says, "Mr. José Van Damme knows it so well. Please give it to him." He said, "No. When I wrote this opera, I had you in mind." And I looked at him without saying anything. I said, "I wish the hell you would have forget about me." Anyway, he said to me, he said, "I know that if you want to do it, you can do it, Mr. Quilico." I said, "Well, that's very beautiful, Maestro, to have such a faith in me." But I says, "That's the faith I don't have in myself." He says, "Don't worry, you can do it if you want." I said, "No, I'm so sorry." I says, "I would like to say." He says, "You do me a favor. If you don't do it," and that was a line that I wanted to shove it in his throat. "I'm going to take her out and I'm going to stop all rehearsal. We won't do it." What did he do? He put that the performance, I was responsible. If I didn't do it, everybody else would have hated me and all that. And he said, "You do me a favor." He said, "The night of the performance, if you have to do it with the score in your hand, you do it with the score in your hand. I don't mind, but you're doing it." I says, "But why do you have so much?" He says, "If you want, Mr. Quilico, you can." I says, "But I don't understand that. How is that you have so much faith in me and I don't have one bit of faith in myself?" I says, "I just plainly don't want to do it." He says, "Please, do it." And believe it or not, I did it. And I was the star of the show. You see, I'm incredible for that, you know. When I lose patience with myself, all of a sudden, nothing works. But all of a sudden, if I put to myself, well, God Almighty, you're going to see, I'm going to show it. And that's what happened. Well, I have to say one thing. The feeling about the music, there was a lot of people did not like it. But it's one of these things, some of the modern music, you have to hear it more than once. If you hear it only once, it doesn't seem to click with you. But if you hear it more, all of a sudden you find certain thing. For instance, another thing that I was very surprised of myself, for instance, that the thing that usually modern composer, well, I don't know how they are in general, but apparently Milo was like that he was really much on what he wrote, that's what you have to do. And I created 2 works for him. And certain moment of his opera, for instance, or in Pacem in Terris. I remember Pacem in Terris, he had one portion of it that he had written something like 120. And I started at 120. I said, no way. This got to go at 60 maximum. We have to cut the tempi in half. And all of a sudden, when I came for the execution, he was there. And I said, "Maestro," I said, "before we start," I says, I would like very much for you to know that passage, I'm not going to do it 120. It's got to be 60. He says, "What do you mean?" I says, "It's too beautiful." I says, you don't have any idea what you've written there." He says, "Well, do me a favor. Do it your speed and do it my speed." And I did it the speed first. Then I did it my speed. Then he started to think about it. He says, "Give me the score. Give me a pencil." It was written 120. He scratched it. He put 60. You know, very often that is the problem with modern music, the new music. They don't hear their music.
No, well, it's the same for piano. The great piano concertos were written by people who could play the piano. Mozart, Beethoven, Rachmaninoff all played the piano.
Yeah.
And with voice, it must be difficult unless they really know how far to extend the voice for modern opera.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I was very surprised about it. And, you know, this is why when I'm having, for instance, a complication with the conductor that will tell me, well, Mr. Verdi wrote that at that speed, or Mr. Puccini wrote it at that speed. Who tells you that's exactly right? Even with them, you could have done it in front of them. They would have said, yes, I like it that way. But you see, that is the point. People were not always helped to argue with their point of view, their feeling, something like that. Me, I'm sorry to say it, and I have to say one thing. I think it created a lot of enemies in my lifetime with conductors for that reason.
Yeah. Well, Verdi had a famous mistress who was a singer.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Verdi, I have to say one thing. In all the composers that I think about, Verdi was the only one that really knew how to write for the voice. Because Verdi was a gentleman that had apparently a very beautiful baritone voice. And this is why all his opera were very, very, very touchy with the baritone, because you listen to all his opera, the part of the baritone is very, very wonderful. And I have to say one thing, for me, it's, I think the greatest reward of my entire career was to have sang so much Verdi and to be treated like a king by a composer like this. Because I feel he treated me, I don't care about anybody else, but I'm talking about myself. The way he treated me, what he wrote for me, it was incredible. Like, for instance, John Vickers said once, one thing that I admire about the man, he said, Verdi is medicine for the voice. And it is true. Because if you can sing Verdi and to have in your mind the interpretation of the voice, it's incredible what it gives you. But you cannot come with your ugly voice or something like that and try to do Verdi. You cannot do that. Because Verdi, it's going to be beautiful.